What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Bring the Thunder podcast. Today, we have an amazing featured guest here, Clemente Almanza, OKC Thunder Wire managing editor and real NBA media member. Clemente, how you doing? Introduce yourself.
I'm doing great, Joe. Covered the Thunder for 5+ seasons now. Um, got to see them win a championship firsthand, going through all their playoff games, and now we're roughly a month away from them starting their title reign, trying to be, the super rare back-to-back champion.
Yes, sir. So last week, as we all know, we reacted to your 2025-26 fan survey. I guess we could just dive right into that. Uh, what were your expectations, and then what did you see? Um, I know it started off with how Thunder fans graded the Thunder's offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this Thunder fan survey every year now for the last 4 years. I think usually around this time of the off season when most of the moves are made. And for the most part, I just wanted to just kind of get a sense of like where how the fan base is kind of feeling with the direction of the franchise. Um, and so far for the 4 years that I've done it, it's been pretty positive. Obviously, this being the biggest one in terms of positivity, just because they're fresh off an NBA championship. Um, but yeah, I mean, I did 16 questions, 15 about the franchise. Um, Tried to doing a basic, grading scale from A to F that we all know. Um, and yeah, like I said, like it was mostly positive. Public opinion's pretty high on the entire organization, from ownership to GM to coach to the players. And I just think everybody's just super excited to see how this team kind of looks heading into next season. As the top dog, as a team, everybody else is going to go after, considering, they're the NBA champions. And like you said, the first question I asked was just how would they grade this off season, and 73.8%. So basically, 3/4 of people said they would give it an A, which I think it's pretty fair. They're obviously, they had a pretty quiet off season. They're basically running it back with the same team, minus some guys at the bottom of the depth chart that were moved. Um, and obviously they locked down their big three as well. So I just don't know how you can't give this offseason anything but an A after they ended up winning the title a couple months ago.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I worded it last week. I was like, we knew it was going to be a quiet off season in terms of bringing people in. I mean, we just won a championship. The roster's already loaded. You got to try to run it back. But, I mean, extending your players, especially the big three, and then obviously signing like A.J. Mitchell to a deal, uh, getting, your draft picks and Sorber and Barnheiser. I had to put an A, but it's a quiet A, but you can't complain much about, after winning a title and trying to run it back. Gabe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most underrated aspects of this team is the team chemistry. Trying to throw something into this by signing a new player or just getting rid of some players, like that's just silly. So, fans who are expecting us to go out and acquire someone like Cam Johnson or go acquire a shooter, like, yeah, sure, okay, maybe in like an NBA 2K video game, my league, that'd be sweet, but we don't need that. We have the chemistry. We just proved it, and we're just full of young guys who are only going to get better and only work together even better. So I agree. I mean, it's kind of hard to give the team that just won a championship anything other than an A for this season, since all they did was retain their key pieces and even their bench players. So looks like everyone's having a good time with their offseason, but getting back to work as well. So yeah, all green flags from OKC so far.
Exactly. Clemente, I got to ask you a question. I know it's your survey, right? So you're the one asking the questions, but this next one really caught my eye. We've had some, quite the discussion throughout this, the off season. The next question was, how many games will the Thunder win next season? And for me, I'm all over like the 65, 64 range, somewhere around that 60. I think I had them going 68 wins. Um, but our buddy Sapir, our co-host Sapir, Thunder Talk, is all over breaking the record. He thinks we're going to come out firing, breaking the record. Listen, he has some good points. Like, the team wasn't fully healthy at all throughout the regular season last year. Uh, Obviously, we got better throughout the season, got probably better throughout the off season, but it's hard to predict a record breaking season. Where did you have them going this year?
Yeah, it's tough. I think that's probably the biggest question heading into next year, is just how the Thunder kind of handle the regular season, because it's kind of true. Like once you win a championship, the regular season feels pretty small, and I'm sure fans kind of felt that way as well whenever the regular season schedule was dropped here a couple weeks ago, where I don't know, just these games really after you experience a game 7 of the NBA finals, it feels super small in comparison. So I'm
Right.
interested to see just how this team kind of handles the regular season. Are they going to go a more conservative approach where, they might sit guys throughout the season, especially on back to backs? We kind of saw them do that last year with guys like Alex Caruso and, Chet Holmgren for different reasons. And that, the benefits of that ended up kind of materializing in the playoffs, as those two were, two of your 5 best players for the entire playoff run. Um, so I'm interested to see just how they kind of handle the regular season for sure. I don't think they'll win 68 games just because that's a ridiculous number. Like only a handful of teams have won 68 plus regular season games.
Right.
I do think they'll definitely finish in the 60s. I do think they'll probably be the first seed again for a third straight season. And ultimately, that's what matters more is whether or not this team has home court advantage. As we saw in these last playoffs, they were almost unbeatable at home. The only 2 home playoff losses were on last second game winners against Aaron Gordon and Tyrese Halliburton. So really, I think seeding matters a lot more than regular season wins per se. All that said, though, I think they'll be in the 60s. I just don't know if they'll get to 68, but because man, that's such a high mark to get to, and
Right.
to do that back to back years, it would be pretty historic for sure.
Right. So Sapier's all over breaking the record. He's on cloud 9. Obviously, I mean, I think we all are after winning the title in such a dominant fashion too throughout the regular season, throughout the playoff, and then obviously wasn't as dominant in the last final series, but we got it done for the first time. So I understand where he's coming from, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I agree. Somewhere in the 60s, barring any like injuries or anything like that. I think it sounds right, Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, I find it kind of dangerous to set some sort of expectation in my head where if we don't hit this number, I'm going to be disappointed. However, with that being said, having built this team, having watched this team perform the way that they did, anything below, I'd say 55 is going to be very disappointing. I think 55 is for sure happening. But the thing to think about as well that I think a lot of people aren't realizing is last year the West was incredible. It's getting better. I mean, the West is not. Think about the Spurs, for example. They're just waiting to come up. They're going to be an incredible team. It's just a matter of time. So this is a difficult West. I really agree with what Clemente just said. What matters to me is that we come out on top as the 1 seed. That's what matters. We could win 56 games, but if we're on the 1 seed, that's all that matters. So I just hope that we come out on top. I'm not wanting to set much of an expectation. I like Satvir being positive, and don't get me wrong, that would be awesome if we set the record. That would be incredible. But I'm thinking somewhere right around that 60 win range. I think that's about what we'll hit. But like I said, I'm not trying to set too strict of a expectation against a incredibly stacked West. So
Yeah. So
just come out on top.
that kind of leads right into the next one. I mean, Thunder fans, about 72% of them in Clemente's survey said they're going to be champions again. Clemente asked, how far would the playoff run be in 2026? Clemente, for me, I mean, I'm always a realist. I think they should get back to the finals, but I know it's such a long season. But 72%, that's a lot of confidence from the fan base.
But yeah, I mean, it's only been a little over 2 months since they won a championship, so everybody's still kind of riding that high. That said, though, I think they're probably the best equipped recent NBA champion to kind of go back to back for the first
Right.
time since those KD Steph Warriors did nearly a decade ago. Because they're bringing back basically the whole roster. Shea's probably gonna have another top 3 MVP finish type season. You know what he's gonna bring to the table. J-Dub, there might be another leap left in him as well after he kind of broke out last year as an All NBA All Star type of guy. And obviously Chet, he kind of looked like he was kind of heading that path as well last year before he ended up fracturing his hip, and that kind of derailed his season. So he's another guy who could also take a leap. And then the rest of those roster is kind of littered with guys who could take smaller, I guess, steps in their developmental program. I mean, Cason Wallace could get better. He's only 21 years old. Aaron Wiggins is just had a career season. He could build off of that. Isaiah Joe, I know like there was a lot of criticism about Isaiah Joe just because of what he did in the playoffs, but he was awesome in the regular season. He also had a career season as well. J-Will's another guy that can get better. And then guys like Caruso and Hardenstein, like we know what they bring to the table. You saw that in their first year with OKC last season. So, like I said, like winning back-to-back titles, I mean, that's tough. Only a handful of teams have done that in league history. That said, though, like if any team's going to do it over the last handful of years, I definitely think this team is pretty well equipped to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I guess we'll lead into another, bounce around a little bit. You had another question where, you asked who's the biggest, Thunder's biggest threat next season. I guess we'll merge these two questions together. Like you had Nuggets, Rockets, Lakers, Timberwolves, or other. Obviously, 73% went with the Nuggets with the upgrades they had all offseason. I think they had a fantastic offseason. That's why with my answer when I was answering the survey, I believe I put championship just because I believe if we do make it to the finals, teams like Cleveland, teams like New York, the Knicks will probably end up being there, and I don't think they'd beat OKC. But if if there was a team to beat OKC, I think it would be the Nuggets.
Yeah, I was honestly a little bit surprised by just how big of a favorite they were. Honestly, I think most people would agree that it's probably Houston and Denver as the next two teams in the hierarchy in the West. I was just a little bit surprised just how lopsided it was in Denver's favor. I think maybe Houston should have gotten a little bit more love in the survey as well. You have to wonder just how much of that has to do with the fact that KD's on the roster and people and fans might be a little bit irrational about KD, especially considering his kind of recent Twitter rants here about opening night and all that. But I don't know. I really like what Houston did in the offseason. I thought they made the biggest move acquiring KD. I just don't think he got a lot of shine when it happened just because it happened on the same day that the Thunder and the Pacers played their Game 7 of the NBA Finals. But I thought that was the biggest move of the offseason. And then they went out and added Dorian Finney-Smith, really good, capable starting wing. Clint Capella, capable starting center. Yep. They really beefed up their center rotation with Capella, Şengün, Steven Adams. I don't know. I really like what the Rockets did. I think everybody's kind of in agreement that their biggest hole last year was the fact that they didn't have a go-to scorer. And even though KD's 36 years old and his best years might be behind him, he's still a walking 25-plus points per game on efficient shooting, championship pedigree as well, won back-to-back titles, has been there, done that at every level of the game. But yeah, like I said, I just really like what the Rockets did in the offseason. And I really think that, them and Denver are probably their OKC's biggest kind of threats to the West. Like I would even give the Lakers a little bit of love as well because, I mean, it wasn't that long ago whenever the Thunder played Lakers in their back-to-back that everybody was kind of dreading that matchup just because, Luka, I mean, regardless of how you feel about him, like he kind of feels like he has OKC's number, just like he has the rest of the league's number. Right. LeBron's still LeBron, and I don't know. I think they had a good offseason as well. But yeah, that was kind of my biggest takeaways from the data of that question for sure.
Gabe, I'll let you chip in quick before because I had another team in mind that I would have went over. I would have took Denver, but I had another team in mind. But Gabe, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, Denver's kind of the big one, like you just mentioned. It's kind of the easy answer. But like I was just talking about earlier, I'm really expecting a lot from San Antonio. I think they're really making something good. Wemby's just going to continue to get better, as we all know, somehow, assuming he stays healthy. But their guard room is insane. I mean, De'Aaron Fox is – I feel like a lot of people forget how good De'Aaron Fox really is. I mean, the guy's an incredible point guard, but adding on to that, they just have a stacked room. They're full of rookies. They have Stephon Castle. They just drafted Dylan Harper. And Harper is in an incredible mindset. He was just talking about the other day how Harden started with OKC and he started on the bench, and that's perfectly fine. So he understands that it's a process. So I think that whole team in general, I just have really high expectations for them. I don't know if this is exactly the year where they're going to be incredible, but I think they're going to be very, very interesting for sure as they take kind of the next step. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my pick. Maybe Timberwolves, just because I feel like Minnesota always kind of has our number as well. They always give us a tough game. They are in a rough spot with their team at the moment where they're kind of squeezing out every last ounce of this roster they got for as long as they can. But Minnesota is always tough. Anthony Edwards is, as we know, one of the best players in the league, so you can't really count him out. Similarly to how we're talking about Luka with the Lakers. So there's a lot of teams in the West though that are dangerous. But yeah, I'll be watching the Spurs personally.
Yeah, the one Clemente that I was kind of surprised that wasn't on there, and honestly, I I think they have a better chance than Houston personally. And I'm not a KD hater. I promise. I just think that they're, if everything hits right, I think the Dallas Mavericks could be really good this year. If Flag's, he's going to be a rookie, so he'll have his struggles. But if he's anything what they're saying he's going to be alongside AD, Kyrie when he comes back, they got D'Lo for depth. And then obviously Washington and Clay and all the other the two other bigs in Lively and Gafford. What do you think? What do you think about Dallas? I mean, they've recently had our number in the past, so I could see them being a threat for OKC for sure.
Yeah, I don't think they could knock out OKC in the playoff series, but I think they could give them trouble. I think the opinion of the Mavericks from the fan side of things compared to like what people in the league actually think are pretty polar opposites. Even after the Luka trade, a lot of teams in the league were still kind of viewing the Mavs as a rival just because the fact that you got Kyrie and AD. That's a really good guard center duo right there. A lot of championship pedigree as well. A lot of playoff experience, and like you mentioned, Cooper Flag, one of the most hyped up prospects in recent history. And then they got like a bunch of other really good veteran role players, and Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford.
Yep.
Derek Lively's a good center as well. Jason Kidd, for how people might treat him, or at least for how fans might treat him as a head coach. Like he's always had playoff success as a head coach everywhere he's gone. I really like I like your picking the Dallas as a team that could potentially be kind of a sleeper pick for a team that could front an OKC. I just think there's just way too many variables involved for them to be super competitive or a super big threat for them this season, just because of the fact that you don't know when Kyrie's going to come back.
Right.
AD's on the older side of things, and even if Cooper Flag ends up having best case scenario for his rookie season, you never really see rookies have like a huge impact on winning their first year. But that's it. I really like your dark horse pick of Dallas for sure.
Right. Awesome. Only a couple more. There was another one. I'm going to put three into one here. You had the fans grade Shea's extension, J-Dub's extension, Chet's extension. For me, they were all A's. I can't complain when you lock down three of the best players in the league, three of your best players on the team. How do you feel about that? I mean, I feel like there's risk with Chet, but you have to lock him down. He's fantastic for OKC. I don't think people outside of OKC fans realize how meaningful he is for this team and how much better they are when he's on the floor. I had him all A.
No, yeah, I think it's definitely a fair grade doing all A for sure. I mean, you just won a championship. You just had one of the greatest seasons ever, 68 wins, best point differential ever. You ended up winning a title, obviously. So if you get a chance to lock up your three best players that did all that, I mean, you got to do it. I mean, Shea's right in the middle of his prime, just turned 27 years old, just won MVP. And I really think his game's going to age really well as well. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the league for the rest of this decade. Right. J-Dub just had a breakout season, 24 years old. I think he's only going to get better as well. I mean, we heard some Scottie Pippen comparisons in the finals, and I think it says a lot that nobody really kind of blinked at them, and everybody just kind of agreed, like, yeah, it's pretty fair. So you got to extend him. And then Chet's probably the riskiest of the three, just because of the injuries. But I don't know, like he's had both of his injuries were freaky injuries, pretty isolated. I don't really have any concerns for either of them being chronic issues for the rest of his career. That said, though, I could definitely understand why he might be the riskiest of the three, just considering the fact that he's missed about half the games he could play in his first 3 seasons. But that said, like you saw him be the first best player on the championship team, had 5 blocks in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, which was a NBA record.
Right.
How he looked how the Thunder looked with him on and off the floor was pretty day and night, especially defensively. So you just had to extend those 3. You took care of business, and now you're kind of set up to be the title contender for the next 5+ years.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Gabe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, Clemente, with Chet, because I was going to say it as well. I understand the other two, and I give him an A, and I understand the Chet one, but that one does – I will be the devil's advocate. That one does concern me. I do think that is a lot of money for someone who, as you just mentioned, has missed half of the games, essentially, that they played. his upside, incredible. It's worth that money and more. That's the scary part though, is banking on that upside with all of that money. Where if you've on this podcast, I've been one of the people that's maybe been a little more critical of Chet at times. And it's not because I think he's not very good. I understand how great he is. He's just had things that have concerned me. And that's kind of ties back into my overall thoughts on that contract. So I do believe for me, that's more of like a B+ range. I'm glad we did it. I understand why we did it. It's just a lot of money for a roll of the dice that I'm a little anxious about. So either way, I get it. All three had to be locked in. I understand. So you can't be upset about that. You just want a ring. So, and that's the other thing. At the end of the day, like, there's not a lot of things that have upset me ever since Oklahoma City Thunder won the finals. So whatever, it's like, okay, we'll just move on to next year and keep hoping that we see that upside from Chet, which as a Thunder fan, I have no choice other than to just believe that he'll show us that. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Chet's defense, you did kind of see him take that leap before he broke his hip. Like he was averaging 18 points, getting to the hoop, pulling up a three. But granted, it was like a 9-game sample size before he got hurt. So I'm assuming both sides are kind of banking on the fact that maybe he could kind of go back to doing that next season. Now that he's had a full off season to kind of be removed from that hip fracture that basically derailed his year last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been seeing a bunch of posts of him in this offseason, clearly working really hard. So it's good to see. It's all good to see. And like you just said, I'm leaning on just believing that we're going to see that jump again. And as long as he stays healthy, there's not a lot that's going to keep him from being that player that we're talking about. So that's my thoughts on him.
Yeah, I don't want to spend like an hour on just Chet, but another thing about him, like Clemente said, it was a small sample size, but you saw opening night. You saw what we did to Denver in Denver. You saw Chet lead the way. He looked fantastic offensively and defensively. His shot in the beginning of the year looked amazing. He obviously had fresh legs, pre-injury. But then you even saw post-injury that game in Boston later into the year. It was just Shea and Chet, no J-Dub that night. They go into Boston and they beat him. Chet looked amazing. He was taking guys off the dribble from the three-point line, really getting to his spot. So bright future ahead, I'm sure. And like Clemente said, they were kind of freak injuries. It's not like he is just getting injured he went up. People fall when they go up for blocks. He goes up for blocks 20 times a game. He deflects 8 shots a game and gets in the way. So it happens. But I'm all A for all three of those. And last one, Clemente, I gotta ask, because we've been, especially Thunder Talk, Satvier and myself, throughout the year, super critical of Mark Daigneault. He has great games. He has games where we think it could have been better. He has games where we're just like scratching our heads, just like ready to freak out. Obviously, on the survey, you had Thunder fans grade, Mark Daigneault's coaching ability, and they ended up, I believe, with I'm losing it now, but they ended up, pretty much saying they liked Mark Daigneault. I want to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
I think Mark's probably the best coach in franchise history since OKC moved here, or since the Thunder moved in OKC at least. I just think he did a really great job at kind of being this rare head coach who not only helped this team in the rebuild, but also helped them become a title contender and ended up eventually winning the NBA championship. Some of his in-game decisions I can kind of get. That's like why fans might question them or criticize them. I know he got a lot of criticism for how he handled the starting lineup in the NBA Finals, starting with Kaysen before he eventually went back to Hardenstein and Chet as the double big lineup to close out the series, as well as kind of how that game one against Denver kind of played out with the whole fouling up free fiasco.
Right.
But I don't know. I just think that stuff is just kind of the surface of what Mark does. Mark does a lot of stuff behind the scenes that fans aren't really privy to, and I think it's pretty clear that he has a great relationship with Shea and J-Dub and Chet and really the whole team. And I really think that kind of matters as much as the X's and O's a little bit. He's carved out one of the best defenses ever. Like since he took over as head coach, the Thunder have had like a top half of the league defense every year.
Right.
He's helped. I mean, he's been by Shea's side as he kind of became the superstar, taking this unconventional path of being a late lottery pick to a one-time MVP winner, and having one of the best seasons ever. But yeah, like I said, like I mean, does Mark have flaws? Maybe even in the in-game adjustments, sure, but I really think you can say that for really any head coach. And I'm sure you'll get some of the complaints from really any fan base if you follow them long enough about their head coach.
Right.
I just think at the end of the day, he produces results. The Thunder have been back-to-back first seeds. They just had the best season in franchise history last year, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. Just what are the results he's producing, and obviously his way of coaching has led the Thunder to have one of the best teams ever, and maybe even a possible I guess dynasty if you want to utter the D word there for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely hope so. Like I mentioned, me personally, I don't take losing lightly, and when we lose, especially because of a coaching decision, I get on them on our show. We still love them. 70% of the fans went A on your survey. Pretty much the rest went B. So fans think highly of them, obviously coming off the championship. And I did give him the benefit of the doubt. When we do get on him, I pull back a little bit and I say, he's still a young coach. He's kind of coming up with the guys that are playing for the team right now. So he's still got stuff to learn as well. But I mean, winning a championship when you were just supposed to be a rebuild coach, I think that shows a lot.
Yeah, I'll add to not only that, but literally look for the roster. Like the only top 5 pick on the roster is Chet, and he went second overall. Like Shea was a late lottery pick, J-Dub a late lottery pick, Lou Dort undrafted, Caruso, Hardenstein, both second round or late or undrafted guys as well. Like their entire roster is made up of these undrafted / second round guys / first round guys that outplayed their draft slot. And I really think that's an indictment of just how good of a coaching staff we have, is being able to get kind of the best case scenario for a lot of these guys' developmental path. And if you look at the roster, I think you definitely make the case that Mark and the rest of the coaching staff has definitely done that with the guys that they have.
Gabe, you get on them too. I mean, what do you think? Do you agree with the fan survey?
The biggest thing that frustrated me with him specifically this year was a lot of the substitutions. I felt like specifically with Aaron Wiggins, he would not play him when I felt like he deserved minutes. He would pull him after he misses one shot sometimes. It felt like, and that's part of that is suffering from success. We have such a deep roster that Mark is so adamant on getting so many different players in, trying different rosters, trying different combinations. And a lot of times that unfortunately saw Aaron Wiggins being the one that got the short end of the stick. And same goes with kind of Jay Will. I kind of got upset about the lack of Jay Will minutes in some games as well. But I mean, one thing that stands out to me is we're talking about all these accomplishments. I mean, the guy is also a coach of the year. There's one thing when you're frustrated and you're sitting on your couch at home saying, well, why do you do that? That was stupid. I could have done better than that. But at the end of the day, we just won the finals and he just coached the team that went to the finals. So it's like, I can get frustrated. I can want more minutes out of players until he gives me a reason to genuinely believe that he is a bad coach. I got to pull back at least on the thought of being upset with him. And so, yeah, I do think I would agree that A is probably where I would rank him. I could see B, but I mean, either way, like he got us to where we are. It's not just the players, it's the coaches as well. But that was the two things that always drove me crazy throughout the year, Joe, is the subbing, especially with Aaron Wiggins and Jay Will. Those two I felt like desperately deserve more minutes. And I will be honest, I am a little anxious to see how that goes this next season with the additions of Sorber and having other guys that are going to be fighting for minutes as well with Topic. So I am a little anxious again to go into this year and watch Mark desperately try to play as many talented players as he can, because once again, we are the definition of suffering from success. We have way too much depth and we are just, frankly, we're just too good. So we'll see how he handles that. I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. All right. I guess we'll end it with this. Clemente, I see a yes or no answer. Should we boo KD on opening night in OKC?
Oh, yes. Easy yes. I mean, come on.
There we go.
Easy.
I'm sure Gabe respects that one.
Oh, yeah.
Sapir, everybody else here on the panel. But Clemente, we really appreciate your time coming on. Awesome survey. Guys, if you want to go check him out, go check out Clemente on OKC Thunderwire. Also, you can see his at C Almanza 1007 on X. And thanks, Clemente. It was a blast.
No, for sure, man. This is super fun. Really appreciate the invite to talk about this survey.
And also, I don't know if you're, new to the program here, but at the end here, I like to end off things with a little bit of a shout. But since it's the off season, I'll just leave it with the Thunder up, baby. Let's go. Thank you, Clemente.